All right, guys, get ready. I see, I'm just looking in the chat. Did I miss anybody here? Debbie, yeah, I know it's soggy. It's soggy up here too in Chicago. So, guys, AI. AI is changing everything about the way we live, and it's happening quicker than I think any of us realize. So I've got on the screen here a shot where you can just see the plethora of different areas that are affected. So here's Fox News Sports saying, we're going to use AI to highlight the highlights, okay? They've got a real glove and then an AI, robotic hand there holding a football. Models being replaced by images. Now that's, something we've seen even months ago. AI in our smart homes. Here's a kid, child, very young child, learning on their laptop, and, the images are being projected there. Hey, David from Missouri. Glad to have you online, sir. Even in agriculture, for someone with a laptop and figuring out, how their crop is going to have a heartier bounty there. But you guys, I would think, want to know how we're using AI in what we're doing here. And so that's why I've asked Karan to join us. So Karan Kumar is a senior member of the product team helping to drive innovation at Toggle. So Toggle is this AI-powered investing program. They have a program called Copilot, which is what we started on, and they've sort of migrated that to their pro system, and now that pro system is migrating to their terminal system, which is, you'd think that this is like a 5 to 7 year product curve here like Apple. This is literally just happening in single or double digit months. It's amazing to me. And again, I've been with them over a year, so I'm seeing this. So there are ex-hedge fund managers like Stanley Druckenmiller. He's in the Market Wizards book. You guys know Tom Basso, who I've interviewed on my show. He's my personal mentor trader. So we are super excited to have Karan with us now. This is his first slide, but I'm actually going to talk on it because I don't think he would want to crow about it like I'm going to. Look at the awards that they've won. This is like 5 to 7 years of awards, except that it's all within 1 year. Benzinga, okay, Wealth Nation, US FinTech, Singapore FinTech Festival, FinSum. I mean, this is just really, really exciting technology. So I would like you guys to give me a hearty CB3 welcome to our guest tonight from New York City, Karan Kumar. Karan, good to see you, buddy.
Hey, Charles. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Wouldn't miss it.
I have to say, you're great on camera. I'm going to try and be as good as you.
Well, this is actually not, I'm in the next room. This is just my image. This is a holograph. So Karan and I dialogue a lot on this because for whatever reason, I've ended up being a beta tester for a lot of companies, including Bloomberg and Thomson Reuters and Refinitiv and et cetera, because I like finding bugs. Orkins never wanted to hire me, but you get the point. So I love emerging technology. I just do. And so what we're going to talk about tonight, and Karan, I'm going to take it over the next slide and send it to you and just tell us a little bit. But before we switch to that, tell us a little bit about you. So you're obviously a really young guy. You're in an incredibly fast moving industry. How did you end up here, and what prompted you to be interested in Toggle? Is it an interest in financial services as it applies to AI, or AI as it applies to financial services? Those are kind of two different things. So.
Yeah, well, it started with an interest, I think, in general finance. I was a trader myself. I think as a lot of people over 2020 during COVID, we saw that boom in retail trading. I found myself opening a Robinhood account, trading all those meme stocks and doing an analytics background at college. It just kind of all fit together that I found myself at Toggle, and things took off from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, I've got the first slide up here. Actually, let me go backwards here. I think, yeah. All right. So there's the problem, is the investment analysis process is broken. And Karan uses a phrase with me, and I kept thinking, you guys know when you go to the doctor and he's hammering around and oh, that hurts. Because, and it's like, it's like, but I have to do that, sir, because I need to find your pain points. Well, what I like about Toggle is they're looking for pain points, and we have them in our industry. And one of the biggest ones is this data vomit phrase that I've used before. It's not unique to me. There's just too much to process. So that was a pain point. And the other pain point is just not having the time to commingle a bunch of different technologies and looking for a singular platform that can give us what we need efficiently so that we can get back to doing what we do, which is actual trading. So tell us about this, Karan.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the on the head, Charles. Is that our founders were just, I guess, overwhelmed with the amount of data that was there in order to make decisions, that they decided, hey, is there a way for us to kind of take this mountain of data, cut out the noise, and just pull insight from it? And that's where Toggle Copilot was born, which you have been a user on. And as data overload increased, we saw an increase in unstructured data, right? We're talking big data, we're talking things like tweets driving financial analysis, right?
Right,
Just
sure.
the type of data and the growth of that data has just been exponential. We found ourselves saying that, hey, is there a way for us to pull in even more of this data to make even more insights? And that's where the terminal came around. And
And of course, so
of
much of that
how
data is uncurated. It's just, I hate to use the term again, but it's just vomited at us because of some search engine. But you guys are curating it in a real specific way.
Absolutely. And that's thanks to the knowledge graph that we have powering the system. So, what the knowledge graph essentially is, it's a web of information that kind of takes everything you need to know about a single entity across different sources. Let me give you an example.
You want me to go to
You
the
look
next
at
slide here and actually show your, because we can see the brokenness on this with these legacy sources and just tons of gears and things. So
Yeah. So like on this, right? You see Bloomberg, you see FactSet, you see Refinitiv, you've got the news, you've got socials, right? Then you've got things like charting, right? Summarization, screening, right? How do you take all of this and pull it together to give you that insight? That's where the knowledge graph helps. And just to give you an example of how that knowledge graph works is,
okay,
you look at a screen, right? You see Apple, right? You just see Apple, okay, one of the largest companies in the world, right? The iPhone producer, whatever. What does the knowledge graph see? The knowledge graph sees all the exposure Apple has to other companies, countries, events, news, so that, for example, when it gets a news article and it reads the news article that says, hey, ChatGPT is now going to be included in every iPhone, it knows that, okay, now the connection between NVIDIA and Apple is a lot stronger. So that now I can
right.
start alerting my investors when there's something going down with Nvidia. It might have a bigger impact on Apple than it historically has, and
Now,
that's
because
all.
Microsoft owns a portion of ChatGPT, I would think it would then bring that in. We talked about this in the green room too about the tentacles of what
Yes.
a toggle terminal does. So it's kind of like an octopus. It just goes out. So you've asked for information here. I think I'm on camera, but now we're pulling in here and here because these are influencers that essentially inform what could be happening with the target stock that you're looking at.
Yeah, yeah, and not just talking about one stock. You can even do it on a portfolio basis, right? So we have one of these tools. It's called a summarization assistant. What it does is it can summarize the performance of your portfolio in one day, looking at all these nodes. So looking at articles, news articles, looking at 10Ks, 10Qs, looking at competitor analysis, right? And pulling all of that together to just give you a single, simple write up of how is your portfolio performed today, what could happen next.
Yeah. Well, I have the slide up here of the discovery analysis and monitoring, and I'm comparing it. I'm just going back to the other one with all the gears and wheels and visualization and watch list alert that's just kind of a blithering amount of data. Talk about this graph a little bit, and then the knowledge graph, which is what you've been talking about, which is the center of this circle.
Yeah. So what the knowledge graph does is it ingests all sorts of data: bank reports, 10Ks, 10Qs, analyst reports, news, to try and pull out what is the most important information you need to know. It then uses that to identify all the nodes an asset has exposure to: competitors, suppliers, vendors, so that if there is, let's say, a big shift in a small port out of Ukraine, the system can understand, okay, what impact does that have on a mega cap like, or sorry, a large US stock like Caterpillar, right? Like, but
Sure.
that connection is what the knowledge graph is able to identify. And what's really cool is that it's self-evolving. So as it gets more information, it's able to say, okay, I see this. And then as I get more and more information, it says, okay, what I caught previously is actually a lot more of a legit relationship than previously believed, right? So it has this identification of nodes as well as ensuring the validity and robustness of that relationship.
So, two things I'm hearing from you. First of all, this is generative AI in its quintessential state,
Mhm.
generating further ideas. But it also has occurred to me, and literally just now, folks, that you mentioned Caterpillar. If I'm looking to buy Caterpillar, you go out and do some research and find out they're in, in a big contract in
Mhm.
Ukraine or France or somewhere, but there are three domestic European companies competing on that. I may hold off buying that. So it's not so much tell me what to buy, it could tell me what not to buy. If not getting that contract because you had those tentacles of knowledge on Caterpillar, that's not going to come from any kind of search, any kind of typical search.
True,
It might
true.
say, there's future risks there, and all of a sudden you wake up and they're down 10% one day because that contract went to a local European company. I'm just making something up. But this could apply to oil fields, it could apply to airlines, anything.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of having another assistant we call our screening assistant. And what
Yeah,
our
I'm going to
screening
go back to
assistant can
that
do,
now. Yeah.
yeah, so what the screening assistant can do is it can identify all the companies that have exposure to a certain theme, and then you can then filter that down further by uh, financial indicators, right? And everything I've talked about so far is all triggered by a large language model. So you don't even have to point and click anymore. You just have to ask the question and you let the research come to you.
Yeah, then we've talked about this. And guys, go ahead and if you got any questions, put them in now because we're getting kind of near the end here. And I know there's about a 30-second delay. There's so much. How do people learn to use this? And obviously, the retail people, for the most part, that are on my show are probably not going to use it, but they want to know how I'm going to use it.
Mhm.
So, speaking to the computer, I mean, I'm wearing glasses that are by Meta that I can talk to. And in the last show, I took a picture of one of the people on the show and I sent it to her, and she got it. Well, we're still on the show. This is one step closer to talking and telling a computer what we want and letting it not constrict us with, we're used to prompts. I mean, let's face it, Bloomberg started with just DOS prompts, right? And if you get a command wrong, something, space, semicolon, you don't get anything. But you guys seem like you're going to a place where it's the human voice that's going to direct what the research is.
Absolutely. I think throughout the time, as we've been developing this, we're not trying to replace anyone here. We're trying to help them do their job better,
Yeah, and
right?
I honestly have never felt the least bit threatened by AI. I am way, way more excited because I don't see there has to be a buyer, and you guys have seen this. I'm looking at the camera now. I've told you this. For every buyer, there has to be a seller. If I'm wanting to buy and nobody's wanting to sell, trade's not going to happen. If somebody wants to sell and there are no buyers, it's an emotional process. I think, at least in my lifetime, we're not going to see AI conquer that. I mean, it's just not. But what it can do is shave hours a week off of my life so that I can
Absolutely.
focus on the things that really matter, which are
Absolutely.
accurate trading, using risk, parameters that we've set up and doing them accurately. So,
Let me
um,
give you let me give you
yeah,
an
go ahead.
example of that, Charles, right? So like every holding in your client's portfolios, right? The system can go through the 10Qs, the 10Ks, the earnings transcripts, and just give you write-ups of everything that you need to know so that you don't have to go through and manually read each one. The LLM can even read charts, it can read tables. So now you don't even have to open a PDF anymore. You can just ask questions about it and get your answers.
So if you just say, look, is this stock trading above the 20 exponential moving average? It reads the chart and tells me that,
Absolutely.
without having to call up a chart. That's huge. I have on the screen now this, on the left, the which we're calling AI vomit, and then on the right side, talk about what you're doing here on the right side. So what happens to Exxon? That's Exxon there. If oil prices fall 10% in 1 week, and then there's this median range, and I've shown this chart before, not this exact one with Exxon, but with other stocks. And but talk about how this is on this screen here.
Sure. So the output on the left side is from ChatGPT, showing you what is it believe is going to happen to oil prices when what's going to happen to Exxon when oil prices fall
Right.
10% 1 week, and it's a very basic answer. And like you said, it's word vomit, right? It's such a long response for you to kind of go through and weed out what is actually important versus just asking Toggle on the right side, what happens to Exxon if oil prices drop 10% 1 week, giving you an actionable insight. Hey, we've seen this happen X many times in the past. Here's how Exxon typically reacts to that.
Well, specifically,
Right?
because it's really tiny on the screen, but I want you guys to see. So when we ask this question, oh, well, since you asked, Toggle says, historically, this has actually occurred 79 times, totaling 273 trading days, because some of these events are longer than others. ExxonMobil price moved, after 79 episodes, and then there's a range down at the bottom. So there's a range of expectancy, I believe, is where you're saying based on historicity here.
Yeah, basically. And what it's trying to tell you is, unlike that basic, I guess, understanding of, okay, oil prices are going down, revenues are going to fall, Toggle's telling you, hey, that's actually already baked in historically into the stock. That's why it typically tends to rise thereafter. But right, pulling that quick insight allows anyone to essentially be an investor.
Yeah, it's a simple question like, okay, if the market drops 5% in a correction, which sectors are most likely to be hit? I mean, that's something that would be real helpful for all asset managers. And of course, everybody would react to that differently. Some might say, well, I'm a dip buyer, so I want to see when that drop is so I can go in and buy. Others might be trend followers and say, no, if that's going to happen, I'm going to put stops in and I'm going to go to cash and wait for a rebound.
Yeah.
But just being able to ask questions like that.
Yeah, a really cool question that we put out in our daily brief yesterday, which is free to subscribe to, is how does the market react to Fed rate cuts? And what we saw was that the S&P 500 on a 6-month horizon, typically falls following falling rate cuts. And then we showed you what were the best performing stocks, the worst performing stocks. So again, being able to pull up that insight with no bias, right? Just pure data showing you actionable insights.
Yet another reason why I tell you guys not to watch the news. Karan, how can these folks be in touch now? Most of them probably won't want to subscribe to the pro version like I do, but you do have Copilot. And I know that I do have a few clients. I think it's $150 a year or something for it. It's a reduced data set that's available. But if you want to learn how AI is affecting the financial services industry, you might, get it for a year, but the newsletter you said is free, right? So
yeah. So the newsletter daily is free. We write about different topics in the market. We supplement all of that with the research that we generate. And then I guess if you're investing through Charles, who's at the forefront of technical innovation, you're in good hands.
Well, I appreciate that plug. So guys, Toggle AI is the URL. Karan, Kumar, thank you so much for being here. This has been great. Really appreciate it. They have this new iteration called the Terminal, and when it is fully released and we've worked through all the bugs that we say, we'll have Karan back on and talk to you more. But it's really exciting. Thanks for being here, buddy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Charles.